back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and spoilers are among us once again. We've had a brief reprieve, I think. A couple of weeks where I haven't seen any new cards at least, which sadly is kind of nice. However, I will try to stay positive in this video with all these new cards coming out from the brand new set. Looking at some commanders, as I always tend to do, for the first time. First impressions, let's take a look. So let's start out with Senator Peacock. 3 and a blue and a blue. And again, I don't know which exactly this is from, you know, because there is like the Clue edition. Again, there's so much overlapping IP all the time that what goes where, I don't know. All I'm talking about is here's a new commander that we could be playing. Let's analyze it. So Human Advisor 3/4 artifacts you control are clues in addition to their other types and have to sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. So you're turning your artifacts into clues. Very interesting. So of course, the very first direction, you know, the first thing that comes to mind for me is going to be the, you know, Mycosynth Wellspring. Any obviously artifact that wants to be going to the graveyard, right? My Mycosynth Wellspring comes into play. I get a land, and then it has this ability, so I can pay to sacrifice it, draw a card, and get another land. Great value. So that definitely is a theme that's going to work here. I'll just say, if you're at all interested in this commander or any of the Clue commanders, get your copy now of this card before it skyrockets in price. Fantastic include in this deck, and probably a lot of these others as well, is Grand Architect. That is a card that I have in my Denic deck for that reason, because it just turns essentially it turns all of your blue creatures into tap draw card, right? Because you tap them to add 2 colorless mana. There's other effects like that can be used here, because the clues can be mana intensive. Again, as someone who's been doing the clue thing for a long time with the Denic deck, any of these clue commanders, one of the things you're going to want to do is have that free mana kicking around to use, because it can get really mana intensive. So the Grand Architect's a great one. Thran Turbine also is a great one in any clue deck. Funny old favorite card of mine that, again, I have in my Denic deck that just becomes, at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card, because you use that 2 colorless mana to crack a clue. Cards to keep in mind for probably a lot of these commanders, but both are great includes here. You can also sack your Thran Turbine to draw a card if you really need to. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, target creature can't be blocked this turn. Okay, I'll just say again, and I'm not going to harp on this. I just did my bad commander design video last month where I talked about this quite a bit, and I also talked about it in the last spoiler video I did covering a bunch of different sets, where I talked about how they always seem to be doing this, where they have the, you know, the ability you're building around, but also they're giving you a payoff as well. I think it's too much. It's not needed. I guess whenever you sacrifice a clue, a creature's okay. That's a nice, the first ability was plenty to build around. Having your creatures be unblockable, I guess, okay. I mean, there's always stuff you can build around there, other than just getting in for combat damage. Throw Cephalid Constable or any creature that wants to be getting for damages can very easily be a slot in here. But other than that, neat. I like the commanders that I go down the rabbit hole of finding those artifacts that I want to turn into clues for various reasons. Can be interesting. Moving on, Nelly Borca, Impulsive Accuser, 2 red and a white. Human Detective 2/4 vigilance. Whenever Nelly Borca, Impulsive Accuser, attacks suspect target creature. So we have a new ability here. Suspect target creature, then goad all suspected creatures. And I have a video coming up, spoiler alert, about the goad mechanic, and we're doing it some more here. So a suspected creature has menace and can't block. Okay, so it has menace, which makes it harder to block, and it can't block. Okay. So, of course, the interesting thing there is you can choose your opponent's creatures, right? So I'm attacking with my Nelly Borca. I wonder if there's any relation to Bell Borca. Same color, so probably. And I have another creature attacking that I don't want to be blocked, so I give it menace, right? Then goad all suspected creatures. Yeah. So you can use it for yourself. Of course, goad only works until your next turn. So if you goad your own creature, it's already attacking. So it's not going to do anything. It's just going to make it harder to block. So you can use this for your own creatures to make them harder to block. But I think more likely you'll use this on your opponent's creatures, who obviously when you attack with your commander, any creature you're worried about becoming a blocker, you just suspect it, and now it can't block. And then it also has to attack on their next turn. So not too shabby. We also have, though, of course, whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls deal combat damage to one or more of your opponents. You and the controller of those creatures each draw a card. So, again, I'm trying to stay positive here, but we literally have commanders that do almost exactly this. What is the Beholder commander? The black-red one is very similar to this, but in black and red colors. So, the goading thing, again, I recently just made a video about this. Will be coming out next week where I talk about it. Because I just made that video, I'll say we already have 23 goad commanders in the format. 23. We already got a lot. They're not slowing down. It's interesting, I guess. I don't know. Again, they are. I think we've already gotten a commander spoiled from the set. That's Boros. That's doing card draw with the whole attacking thing. So now we're doing and I will clarify for the 100th time. This is a commander channel. I'm evaluating these based on commanders. I don't care if they're in standard or whatever format they're supposed to be for, whatever. I'm just evaluating them as commanders. And as a commander, this is not super exciting, and it's a build around that we've seen quite a bit. So, all right, moving on. Morska, Undersea Sleuth, green, white, blue, Videlkin Fish Detective. Oh, that's a funny creature type. That is a funny creature type. Videlkin Fish Detective. Aren't Videlkin? Oh yeah, Videlkin are not. That's a weird creature type. That's a really weird creature type. How do you become a Videlkin fish, I wonder? A little bit of crossbreeding there. So 2/3, you have no maximum hand size. Well, already we have a commander that people are going to want to build around. So at the beginning of your upkeep, investigate. So we're just making a clue token on our upkeep. So we're already doing that. So the stuff I already covered there. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put 2+1/+1 counters on Morska Undersea Sleuth. So again, I'm a little bored looking at this. We just want to draw cards. I mean, it certainly is. It's very open-ended. There's a lot you can do here. You have no maximum hand size is always nice. Creating that clue token on your upkeep, there is a lot you can do there. But at the end of the day, you're drawing cards. You're putting counters on your commander. We're again doing the exact same thing where I have that triggered ability and then I get the payoff for it. I don't know if anyone's getting excited about this commander other than the fact that it's a Videlkin Fish Detective. Next up, Miro Obsessive Theorist. 1 blue and a black vampire detective, 1/3 flying vigilance. So we now have a vampire detective. This is Mirko, right? Like Mirko Vosk? Is this the same guy? Probably. Whenever you surveil, put a +1/+1 counter on Miro Obsessive Theorist. Whenever you surveil. So we now have, I think we've already had a surveil commander, but we got another one now. At the beginning of your end step, you may return target creature card with power less than Mirko's power from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it, which of course, we've already seen that. What it means is if it would die, exile it instead. But of course, you can actually remove the finality counter. So that, again, is something that you're going to want to do in this deck. You're going to want to put that power conduit in here so that you can remove the finality counter from your creatures that you resurrect. The Nesting Grounds, again, another deck where that's an auto include. So now you can even put the finality counter on your opponent's creatures, which is pretty fantastic. So it almost becomes an upside, the finality counter, if you have your Nesting Grounds in play. Not bad. Obviously you're surveilling, putting stuff in your graveyard, and then at the beginning of your end step, you may return target creature with power less than Mirko's. So you're doing reanimate. Obviously, surveil, blue and black colors is the best for that. A lot to build around here with the surveil. The +1/+1 counter, there's some you could build around as well. You can also very easily, this is an end step trigger too. I will point out though, that your commander's actually not surveilling, right? It's only whenever you surveil. So you actually have to put a lot of surveil stuff in here in order for you to be putting those counters on your commander. But at the same time, you don't have to do that at all. It works with the second ability, but you actually can just completely skip over the surveil theme here, right? I can just cast a Hatred, and then on my end step, my commander is going to get any creature I want out of my graveyard, right? You can just skip the surveil thing and just make a recursion deck here entirely. It's very easy to get stuff in your graveyard. You can already do that through self-milling and looting and everything else. You don't have to do the surveil. It does work, but you certainly could build this commander without doing that at all. All right, lastly today, Kaust, Eyes of the Glade. 1 Boros hybrid mana, so white and red, and then a green. So this only costs 2 mana. That ain't much, but it is a 3-color commander, of course. A Dryad detective this time. Whole lot of detectives in this set. Obviously, it's a 2/2 Whenever a creature you control that was turned face up this turn deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Wow, there's something we've definitely never seen before. So you want to be doing morph here, obviously. We have another ability here, though. Tap, turn target face down, attacking creature you control face up. Wow. Okay, so we're doing morph. What else can we do other than morph? There's other ways, obviously, to put creatures face down. Manifest will work here. There's some pretty good manifest cards that will work. Obviously, with the manifest, it's got to be, so when a creature you control that was turned face up, so that's not going to work. Turn target face down, attacking creature you control face up. So if I manifest a creature that's not a creature, right? I manifest an enchantment. I mean, again, the build around's fairly obvious here, I guess. But maybe you could do some really interesting things here. I think this might be the commander that maybe has the most interesting directions to go with it of the ones I've seen here. So when you manifest the top card of your library, it is typically what you do is if it's a creature, right? Because manifest and morph work differently. If it's a creature, you can pay the card's mana cost and flip it over. But your commander is allowing you to flip it over. So if I manifest a Smothering Tithe onto the battlefield, and then attack with it, because it is a creature. It's a 2/2 creature when it's manifested, even though it's an upside down Smothering Tithe. I attack with it and then flip it over. And now I have, I mean, it's going to be removed from combat because it's not actually a creature anymore, right? I attack with that 2/2 creature, turn target face down, attacking creature you control face up. Yeah, so I'm going to flip it over as I attack with it. And then, of course, because it's not a creature, it gets removed from combat. And now I have a Smothering Tithe in play. And, of course, you can go really bananas there with much more expensive permanents, right? Obviously, it's got to be a permanent. And if it's not, like, again, I did this whole ruling thing with Magar, the 2 strings, and I actually need a little bit of help with that. So if you have a face down, let's say a sorcery, right? Like an insurrection, right? So you got a face down insurrection and you flip it over as a state-based action. It goes directly to your graveyard. So you will get nothing out of that. So that's not going to do anything. What's that artifact that manifests a card from your hand? That's obviously going to want to go in here, right? You can cheat some really big artifact or enchantment in play, and then, yeah, just attack with it, use your commander to turn it face up, right? I mean, you could do some really neat shenanigans here. Certain things won't work, like a Planeswalker won't work because when you manifest it, when you flip it over, it's going to have 0 loyalty counter, so it will instantly die again. I wonder what would happen. Let's go through some funny scenarios here. What if we had a land, a land that it's an MDFC land? That's the thing, though. MDFC lands, do they have, yeah, they have a face down and a face up. So I play my MDFC land face down as a land, right? And let's pretend it's a creature on the other side. I attack with it. I animate it, of course. I have to animate it as a land. It is now a face down card that is a creature that's attacking, and I can flip it over, and now I get the front side. Does that work? I actually don't know. Honestly, what actually applies here? There might be some really, really interesting interactions you can get into. That's kind of what's neat about this. I think likely this commander is just going to get used as a morph commander or morph manifest combination of the two, although you could probably get into some really neat interactions here for sure. It is a pretty cool commander. All right, there you go. We got 5 new commanders from the brand new set, Ravnica Murders at Karlov Manor, which I guess I haven't even mentioned the name of the set yet, if you're not aware. We also have, again, the Clue crossover IP thing in there as well. What falls where, I'm not sure. At the end of the day, I'm just evaluating these new commanders, and we certainly got some interesting ones here for sure. You guys let me know what you think of these new commanders in the comments below. That's it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.